Their journey began in Yasharel, but they were scattered across the face of the earth, each one with its own beats, and each one with its own rhythm. As the dry bones are being revived, the beat begins again at the heart of the tribe.
All right. Hello, hello. Welcome to Heart of the Tribe. I don't know what happened there or why my video decided to play twice. But today I wanted to come on and bring a presentation, something I've been working on for a while. You know, I've been in the middle of this Kings and Prophets series. And the reason why is because it tells the story of the tribes. And today I'm probably more excited about the lesson that I've got today and the presentation I've got today to share with you than I have been over any of the others. It really is pertinent to our day, shows a great amount of insight into what's happening in the world right now and what we can expect as time marches forward as his people. And so I'm really excited about that. I did want to mention just a couple of quick announcements before I get into the presentation that I do have some links in the description box, or will have links when I go back, I guess, and put them in of the description box of how you can support my ministry. And thank you so much to each and every one of you where your heart is impressed to do that. I really appreciate it. May you be richly, richly blessed for your generosity. On the same site, there are things that you can purchase as well as just give a donation. The articles that I write and where I go into things on the Odiot and the Hebrew pictograph explanations, things on the feast, different articles on the tribes, things like that. Those are there, as well as things that I crochet and make. I also put those things on the same site. So all those links are there for you. Now, to get on to the presentation, which is really the important part right here. Let me go ahead and add this to the screen. I'm so glad that you are here with me. And I just put on my comments. So if anybody wants to say hello, go right ahead and I'll be able to see it. Okay, so we're at, I think this is part 10. I've done so many parts with this because I really, hi T, good morning. I've done so many parts with this that I'm not even sure if it is part 10, but I think it is from when I started with Kings. Before that, I had done Joshua, Judges, 1st and 2nd Samuel. And so then once we got to Kings, I started putting the parts on here. So the Kings and the Prophets. All right, let me keep going on. All right, so I wanted to start here with just this basic introduction. I've used Dr. or Mr. Cates, the late Robert L. Cate. I've used his book many times in looking for a little bit of insight into the different things we're studying. His book is called An Introduction to the Old Testament and Its Study. And this is what he had to say about this time period. He said, from the prosperous days of Jeroboam II to the final collapse of Israel was only a brief time. The main feature of this period was the Syro-Ephraimitic crisis, which is also addressed in the preaching of Isaiah the prophet. In 735 BC, Pekah of Israel and Rezin, who was from Assyria, sought to overthrow Ahaz with the intent of putting their own puppet on the throne of Judah. Ahaz, however, against the advice of Isaiah, sent to Assyria for help. The end result of that request was the fall of Damascus, capital of Syria, in 732 BC, and the fall of Samaria in 722 BC. Although Judah at that time did not face the military might of Assyria, she became a vassal of the Assyrian king in return for being delivered from her enemies. This involved the payment of tribute and the worship of Assyrian gods. The strength of Samaria is indicated by the fact that it took Assyria 3 years to take the city. The Assyrians adopted a policy of systematic deportation of those whom they conquered. So they were being besieged, right? They were under siege, and it took 3 years. Can you imagine, the water supply being cut, food supply being cut? When you're under siege, things become very difficult. And so as they would capture some of the people, they would deport those people, right? They removed many Hebrews and imported people from other conquered nations because they were the superpower of the world at the time. Whatever nations they had already captured, this is how they took control. Because what happens when you take a completely foreign nation and import their people into it, send in the refugees, you dilute the culture. So when you dilute someone's language and their culture, you dilute their cohesiveness. You weaken that nation by doing this. It's a tactic to weaken the nation. All right. So the people could not easily communicate with one another since they spoke different languages. Such a policy inhibited future rebellions. From Israel's standpoint, it also ultimately meant that her remaining citizens would intermarry with those who had been resettled, thereby creating a whole new culture. This eventually produced the people known as the Samaritans in late Old Testament times and in the New Testament. So we get some insight there on how did the Samaritans become the Samaritans. All right, so we have a question here. The question really is, why the Israelite kingdom fell and what happened to the millions of people. This is the question that we're asking right now. And so that's what I hope we can go into great insight here with this. So we're given an answer in 2 Kings 18:12, and it says, because they obeyed not the voice of Yahweh Elohim, but transgressed his covenant, right? They were covenant breakers. They would not adhere to his Torah. And all that Moshe, the servant of Yahweh, commanded, and would not hear them nor do them. Now, you notice I'm using the Sefer, and the Sefer, one of the things that I absolutely love about it is it helps us to see where the Aleph and the Tav shows up, right? And who is the Aleph and the Tav? Yahusha said, I am the first and I am the last. I am the Aleph and the Tav. And so when we're talking about the covenant, right? In the beginning was the word was with Elohim, and the word was Elohim, according to John 1:1. He is that living word, which is what the covenant is. And so we can see, why would that Aleph Tav be right there? When they refuse to honor the covenant, they're refusing to be in relationship with the creator of the universe, Yahusha, right? So now I wanted to share just a little insight from this book. It's called Israel's Lost Empires. This is by Stephen Collins. All right. Israel trusted in political alliances and its own efforts instead of trusting God, right? We see this attitude. We saw this attitude in 9/11, right? And in Isaiah 9:11, we will rebuild. We're going to use better bricks. We'll strengthen, we'll build back better, right? I've talked about this so many times, but this is such an affront to Yahweh. Right? It is so offensive to him that we're going to be all that we can be in our own strength, and we don't need God. We'll use his Bible verses and we'll throw that in whenever we want, but do we really need him? And the answer in their hearts is no, because they're fully convinced that they are strong enough without him, and that they have great alliances and they've made great plans, and nothing could defeat their great plans, right? So Israel, ancient Israel, trusted in political alliances and its own efforts instead of trusting God. Although the Bible declares the Assyrians went throughout all the land of Israel, the only place where any resistance is mentioned was at the city of Samaria. This indicates that while the Assyrians went throughout the whole land of Israel, they found Israelites in significant numbers only in the capital city of Samaria. The cuneiform records of the Assyrians claim only 27,290 captives in this final campaign, all of whom came from Samaria, the capital city. We know that a third or more of the Israelites were taken captive by Tiglath-Pileser, and that another 27,000 Israelites were taken captive when Samaria fell over a decade later. The obvious question is what happened to the rest of the people of the kingdom of Israel? So we had talked about that in the last installment that I did on Kings and Prophets, or maybe it was one or two back, where we talked about this Tiglath-Pileser. All right. So continuing on with more insight from Stephen Collins, he says, what happened was the remainder of the war-weary Israelites finally abandoned their land and cities prior to Assyria's last invasion. The tribes of Naphtali, Gad, Reuben, the half of Manasseh had already gone into captivity by Assyria. The missing tribes, remember, they were on the other side of the Jordan, so they got taken first, right? The majority of Israel's tribes are not mentioned as captives, either in biblical or Assyrian records. And the Assyrians were such a proud lot that, to be sure, they would have made sure it was in their records if they had preeminence there over the remaining tribes. So the obvious conclusion is that the remaining tribes of Israel fled the land voluntarily and not as captives. Only the king's loyalists stayed to withstand a siege in the capital city. Either they were stubborn Israelites who refused to abandon their land, or they were a heroic rear guard who occupied the Assyrian army for 3 years, allowing their countrymen time to flee without pursuit. What is apparent is that few Israelites remained with the last king of Israel to face the Assyrians. The rest of the nation followed their tribal elders to new homelands. To flee imminent death and destruction is a basic self-preservation response of all people. The Israelites were no exception to this rule. They were highly motivated to preserve their lives, fortunes, and freedom by fleeing the Assyrians before the final invasion of the ancient kingdom of Israel. The many destinations included the Phoenician alliance of Israel. Tyre and Sidon established colonies in North Africa, Spain, Mediterranean locations, the British Isles, and North America. So I don't know if I'm doing a good job of explaining that, but in the previous episodes that we've done, we've really talked about the strength of the Phoenician and Israel alliance. And it was, because Solomon had created a worldwide empire, the Phoenicians and Israel almost became indistinguishable from each other. And the northern tribes were on the Phoenician ships also going to other locations. So they knew of all the locations. It's well documented, and we've talked about it in other episodes, that the gold and copper that were taken out of mines and brought for all the things that needed to be built for the temple were mainly done by the northern 10 tribes and the Phoenicians on their ships. So these northern tribes were well aware of all the other different lands out there. Excuse me. Okay, see if I can get my throat to cooperate. All right. So the places that they knew of were in North Africa, Spain, the Mediterranean locations, all the British Isles, and North America. And I think that that's going to be paramount to our study here. All right. Many people likely had relatives in these mostly Israelite colonies. So the people had left, they had already gone, they had established colonies, right? So when these other people saw the writing on the wall that invasion was coming, right? They knew they could start afresh with very little culture shock, as their customs and language were the same as those of Israel. So they went ahead and went to these different places, right? Rather than being taken captive. Isaiah 11:11 says, Isaiah 11:11 prophesied Israel's people would be widely scattered around the world. One such place to which they would migrate was the islands of the sea. And so we see here out of Isaiah 24:15 and 16, wherefore glorify ye Yahweh in the fires, even the name of Yahweh Elohai of Yasharel in the isles of the sea. From the uttermost part of the earth have we heard songs, even glory to the righteous, right? So where did they go? The isles of the sea. So much becomes clear when one realizes, and this is back out of Stephen Collins' book, much becomes clear when one realizes the Bible is written from the Israelite Phoenician perspective. The Phoenicians did indeed explore and colonize the isles of the sea and the uttermost parts of the earth. It was shown earlier that the Phoenician Empire dominated portions of the 5 continents in the ancient world. The above biblical statements aptly describe the far-flung nature of the Phoenician Empire. The books of Psalms, Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes were written primarily by the 2 greatest kings of the Phoenician alliance, David and Solomon. The books of 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, and 1st and 2nd Chronicles were written about the rise and fall of the Phoenician Empire of ancient Israel. It really does give a lot of clarity once you start looking at it from that perspective, right? That perspective really has been done away with quite a bit, because most of our history, what do they say? History is written by the victors, or those in charge, right? Well, those in charge of Bible history really have been the Jews, and so a lot of things now are interpreted according to the Talmud, the Mishnah, the Zohar, and how they're interpreting scripture according to their oral traditions, not so much according to the scripture. I know I was listening to something recently about a man who is somebody who had an encounter with a young man who is in school studying to be a rabbi. And basically he said that, they're really, when this gentleman, a friend of mine, was having a conversation with this young man, what he was able to discern from asking some, questions, was that this young man was being instructed in the Talmud. He knew the first 5 books, he knew the Torah, but concerning the rest of the scriptures, he knew absolutely nothing, right? So that's where it's coming from. And so we're having to do our own digging. And I'm so glad so much more information is coming forth, because there's more to the story, right? All right, so let's continue on. We're going to start here, 2 Kings 17:1-3. It says, in the 12th year of Akaz, king of Yehuda, began Husha, the son of Allah, to reign in Shomron over Yasharel for 9 years. Okay, so Elah is reigning in the capital city of Samaria, which is in Israelites' territory, and he's there for 9 years. And he did that which was evil, Ra, right, in the Hebrew, in the sight of Yahweh. There is nothing hidden from his sight, right? He sees it all. But not as the kings of Yasharel that were before him. So somehow his sin was a bit different. Against him came up Shalmaneser, the king of Ashur, right? The king of Assyria. And Husha became his servant and gave him presents. So he decided negotiation and concessions with his enemy were the way to go. Most likely, this resulted in favor and gifts being doled out to those of the in crowd, while the people were sold into slavery. Boy, is that not a reflection of what is happening in the nations today, and in particular in the nation I am most familiar with, which would be the United States of America, right? Our I mean, when you look at what's happening to our taxes, when you look at, I need to state this, I guess, that today is October 17th of 2023, and currently the government of the United States of America is sending millions more to the nation of Ukraine and millions more to Israel to fight battles, right? And sending our young men into these battles because we are the superpower, and this nation has a God complex that thinks that nothing can go wrong for them, right? Time is certainly going to straighten that out. Okay, 2 Kings 17, 4 and 5 says, and the king of Ashur found conspiracy in Husha, for he had sent messengers to So, the king of Mitzrayim. So was the name of the king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Ashur, as he had done year by year. Therefore, the king of Ashur shut him up and bound him in prison. He's like, if you don't make your tributary payments, you don't pay, I will bring punishment upon you, right? So then the king of Ashur came up throughout all the land and went up to Shamron and besieged it for 3 years. So here is the besieging of it. When you besiege something, there's no water, no food, no supply line, no medical supplies. I mean, things can get very rough, right? It seems that Husha thought he could ensure his safety by being deceitful to the king of Ashur and stopping his tribute payments, right? He was trying to make a deal with the king of Egypt. So 2 Kings 17:6 says, in the 9th year of Husha, the king of Ashur took Shamron and carried Yasharel away into Assyria, and placed them in Halak and in Havor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Madai. All right. So we've got a picture of what that looks like when you're taken captive. Most likely, when people are taken captive out of their own land, and it says it in the scriptures that they were stripped naked, right? And they're chained together. Their buttocks is flapping in the wind. It's shame and humiliation and disgrace. It's letting them know what your new status is, right? And that's how that is done. So Ezra, I wanted to read this. This is so exciting to me and how this plays in, because it tells more of the story. When you read the book of 4 Ezra, it is very plain to me why the Jewish community did not want this in, because it's full of an exclamation. It's full of, one, it tells us all about the other 10 tribes who they just would assume are done and gone forever. And according to 4 Ezra, that is certainly not true, right? And according to the rest of the scriptures, it's not true either. And you can see it glorifies Yahusha. So you can see why they did not want this in the scriptures. Also, it makes sense to me so many places why the modern day church, because it doesn't go along with their theology either. So one of my favorite sayings is never let your theology decide what the scriptures actually say. So we're going to read this hidden lost book of the Bible that I'm grateful that Dr. Pigeon did put back in the Sefer so that we could find it. So in 4 Ezra 13, 29 through 41a, let's just read this scripture. It says, behold, the days come when El Elyon will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth, and he shall come to the astonishment of them that dwell on the earth. Can you see it now, right? When he comes, all are going to be astonished. And one shall undertake to fight against another. So this is talking about what will it be like at this time period when this begins to happen, right? Because it's not just a single instant, it is a time period, and we are living in it. And one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another, one people against another, and one realm against another. Now that is critical, because we're talking about the unseen realm right there. and the wars that are going on, nation against nation in the unseen realm. Okay. And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the sign shall happen, which I showed you before, and then shall my son be declared, who you saw as a man ascending. I mean, this is amazing to me. This is written long before the ascension of Mashiach that the disciples got to see, but Yaakov got to see the angels descending and ascending, and Abraham saw his day. And so it's amazing to me how this is right here and written. Okay. And when all the people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have one against another. All right. So it's like suddenly when they see this happening, they're like, okay, I'm done fighting against each other. We've got something bigger on our hands, right? And an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together as you saw them, right? So those that had been fighting one against each other, right, are now going to band together. They're going to stop fighting each other. They're willing to come and to overcome him by fighting. So they turn all their fight against Yahusha. That's what this is saying. But he shall stand upon the top of Mount Zion, and Zion shall come and shall be showed to all men, being prepared and built, like as you saw, the hill graven without hands. And this my son shall rebuke the wicked inventions of those nations. Look at all the inventions that are going on right now. I've done lots of shows about this with, the eyeball scans and just the, the stuff that Dr. Monzo and I have talked about with technology literally being put into the body and all the different things that we're learning about that. It is amazing. Welcome, BW Bailey. Glad you're here with us today. All right. So, but he shall stand upon the top of Mount Zion, and Zion shall come and shall be shown to all men, being prepared and built, like as you saw, the hill graven without hands. And this my son shall rebuke the wicked inventions of those nations, which for their wicked life are fallen into the tempest, and shall lay before them their evil thoughts. Right? He's like, this is who you are and where you are, and I'm showing you who you are. Okay. And the torments wherewith they shall begin to be tormented. He's saying this is your future. And at this point, it's too late. Right? Because we come into relationship by faith. The time to believe is now, not later. When there is no chance of repentance, right? I hope that anybody who's caught up in this mess might hear this message today and repent and turn. Okay. And whereas you saw that he gathered let me go back. The torrents, which they shall begin to be tormented. All right. Okay, so he shall lay before them their evil thoughts, and the torments wherein they shall begin to be tormented, which are like unto a flame, and he just shall destroy them without labor by the Torah, which is like unto me. And whereas you saw that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him. So those of the evil kingdom have gathered, and those of a peaceable multitude have gathered unto Yahusha. Those are the 10 tribes. That's what it says. Which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Husha the king, whom Shalmaneser, the king of Ashur, led away captive. And he carried them over the waters so that they came into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth. I mean, is this not amazing? And go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might there guard their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into Parath by the narrow places of the river. For El Elyon then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arzareth. Now, I found this fascinating because when I wanted to look into who in the world Arzareth was, I put this in. I went to the 1901 Jewish Encyclopedia, and they state Christopher Columbus, identified America as this land, right? With this land, with the land of Arzareth. Okay. Very, very interesting. All right. So, and it gives you where to find this information too, where they, found this information. Kaiser Ling's Christopher Columbus, translated by Dr. C. Gross, on page 15. What I found interesting was in this Jewish encyclopedia, then there was a whole paragraph of commentary saying why that couldn't be, but no scriptural, nothing to back that up except for, again, opinion. All right. So going on with 4 Ezra 13, 46 through 50, it says, then dwelt they there until the latter time, right? Until the Akarit Hayamin, the last days. And now when they shall begin to come, and how do we come? We're told, come out of Babylon, my people, come out of Babylon. Well, Babylon's everywhere right now, right? There's not a nation on earth that isn't caught up in the snares of Babylon. So the only way to come out of her, my people, is in your heart, in your intentions, your actions, your choices. This is how we come out of her. Okay. It's by refusing to participate in the things of the day, right? So there are a people that are coming out of her. All right. Therefore you saw the multitude with peace. All right. I'm going to start back because I want to read this all in concept. It says, then they dwelt there until the latter time. And now when they shall begin to come, El Elyon shall stay the springs of the stream again. Right. So what happened the first time when the first Exodus, right? He parted the Red Sea. This is what this is a reference to. He's saying, I'm going to do this again when I bring them out of the nations. There are other places in the prophets that talk about how he will split 7 streams for them to come across because they're coming up out of the nations. According to Hosea, he whom was scattered shall be regathered. If you haven't watched that presentation, go back and watch the presentation for Hosea to understand that, right? So El Elyon shall stay the springs of the stream again, that they may go through the waters. Therefore you saw the multitude with peace, right? With shalom. It's a peace that can't be shaken. It's that peace that Yeshua left with us, not the peace of the world, but the peace that he gives, right? This is what's being discussed. But those that be left behind of your people are they that are found within my borders. Now, when he destroys the multitude of the nations that are gathered together, he shall defend his people that remain. And then shall he show them great wonders. Now, just so you know, that's all I'm going to share out of 4 Ezra for this presentation, but I am going to be recording this book of 4th Ezra, and so that we can read the whole thing in context, because it is so important and it is so pertinent to the day that we are living in. It is an amazing book, and I'm looking forward to recording that for you. All right. 2 Kings 17, 7 and 8. So it was that the children of Yasharel had sinned against Yahweh Elohim, which had brought them up out of the land of Mitzrayim from under the hand of Pharaoh, the king of the Mitzrayim, and had feared other Elohim. So right back in the story here, here's the connection. He took them out of Mitzrayim, right? He took them out of Egypt, split the sea, right? And delivered them from the hand of Pharaoh. And walked in the statutes. Okay. What is this? The Hebrew word is hukah. It's in the manner of the heathen. So he's saying, even though I delivered them, then they went right back to walking in the manner of the heathen, whom Yahweh cast out from before the children of Yasharel and of the kings of Yasharel, which they had made. Okay, so what happened? This was sin. Okay, this is what he's talking about. The children of Yasharel had sinned against Yahweh. So what is it? We don't often take a look at what sin is from the Hebraic perspective. It is hata. Okay, so in the Hebrew, we've got the het, the tet, and the aleph. The Brown Driver Briggs Strong's gives us a definition that means to forfeit, right? They're saying it means to forfeit. So the etymology of this word is when you remove something from the source of life. Okay, that's what it means. What did they forfeit? Because the Strongs and Brown Driver Briggs are just telling us to sin. One thing is they'll say, "Oh, you've missed the mark," and you've to forfeit. What did you forfeit? You forfeited everlasting life with Yeshua. You forfeited the right to become, at the end of all things, the B'nai Ha-Elohim, the very thing that Adam and Eve were tricked into from the beginning when the fruit was dangled before them, because they went ahead and grasped at it before it was time. They wanted the power, the knowledge, the authority that they saw, that the fallen sons of Elohim had, right? And so they sinned. And what they did was they forfeited their right to have that, right? So we've got the pictograph here with the het, the fence, the tet, right? Which is, it's got the four corners of the earth, right? It's got, all directions. It's the Ouroboros. It's surrounded. It's the four corners of the earth surrounded by the snake. And then we've got the aleph, the ox head, the first strength, right? So to sin, by this pictograph, our word picture shows us that to sin is to separate by scattering to the four corners. You're sent away from the Father. Okay, separated. Genesis 39, 7-9 says, "And it came to pass after these things that his Adonai's woman cast her eyes upon El Yosef, and she said, 'Lie with me.'" So this is the story of Yosef in the pit, right? Yosef was favored and chosen by Yah. And this is what he had to endure, because this is what people miss so often, is that when you are favored and chosen by Yah, look at what all the prophets had to suffer. Look at what Yosef had to suffer. And what was it about his life that caused this suffering? The favor of Yah. Because he could trust Yosef's heart with trouble, that Yosef would still love him because he understood the bigger picture. And that's what we have to grasp as we are going into these days of tribulation. We have got to have a right perspective of who Yah is and what our place is in all of this, because suffer we will. Persecution we will go through. It is guaranteed. It is not going to be easy. These are the days of tribulation, and he chose us for this day and this time to be the kind of people that he could trust our hearts to endure trouble and hardship and not remove our eyes from him as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And we would know and proclaim that he is perfectly just with everything, every judgment that is pouring out upon the nations, and in particularly is about to pour out on the United States of America. He is perfectly just in every judgment, because can you imagine what he is having to hear as these little children and women are being trafficked, right, for the pleasure of the elites at their sex parties, right? Can you imagine having to hear the cries of this and the stench of this coming up before you? He is going to pour out his judgments on this nation, on this prideful, arrogant nation. He's going to. It is going to happen. And it's going to rain on the just and the unjust. And we're going to go through some things. But here is what we've got to get to the point of, right? The point where Joseph was, where he had an understanding that said, I will not sin against Elohim. I won't do it. So let's read his story so that we can understand this perspective. And it came to pass after these things that his Adonai's woman cast her eyes upon El Yosef, and she said, lie with me. Lust, pornography opens a portal of fire in the soul. Okay. There's a soul portal that's opened up. And it sets a person on fire to when you've had that opened up in your life, the lust can overtake you and drive you, and you've got to have deliverance from it, no matter what it takes. Fasting, prayer, begging Yah to take that thing from you and to sever it in your life and to give you a robe of purity and righteousness. You know, I don't talk about all these things with a lack of understanding personally. I know the personal cost of having to get free from things. I have been slave to so many things in my life, but Yah has set me free, so I know it's possible, right? And you can get free of these things, and you don't have to stay trapped underneath that enemy with these things. All right, so she was trying to draw him in through lust. But here's what Joseph did. He refused, and he said unto the woman of his Adonai, right, of his Lord and master. He was in this man's house. Behold, my Adonai knows not what is with me in the house, and he's committed all that he has to my hand. There's none greater in this house than I. He's like, I'm in a position of great trust, right? Neither has he kept back anything from me, but you, his wife, because you are his woman. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against Elohim? There are not enough people in this nation that understand that to lie with another man's wife is a great wickedness. It's wickedness. And that goes for even viewing it as pornography. It's time to get it free. All right. Let's look at 2 Kings 17, 9 through 12. It says, and the children of Yasharel did secretly, right? That word is hafa. It means to cover. The root is to veil your actions. Okay. So you can see what I've got here. What do they call it? The Cinco Gaia, right? With a G. Okay. You can see it, right? It's covering up actions. Look at how this was done in 2020, right? So, and the children of Yasharel did secretly those things that were not right against Yahweh Elohim, and they built them high places. Okay. This is how this stuff's being spread all over in all their cities from the tower. Now the tower is called, it's Migdal in Hebrew. And this is, when you look at one of the definitions here, and I've done a whole study on this, on the place of Migdal, right? But this is a hidden pyramid covered with flowers for communication. And I thought this was a very accurate display, right? All right. And they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the Nazarene to the fenced city. And they set them up images and Asherah poles in every high hill and under every green tree. And there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen, whom Yahweh carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke Yahweh to anger. For they served idols, whereof Yahweh had said unto them, you shall not do this thing, right? Very displeasing to him. Continuing on, verses 13 through 15. Yet Yahweh testified against Yasharel and against Yehuda by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, turn ye from your evil ways and guard my commandments and my statutes, according to all the Torah which I commanded your fathers and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks, like to the neck of their fathers that did not believe in Yahweh Elohim. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he cut with their fathers. What did they reject? They rejected the Torah, right? Hasn't been done away with. You can't find that in scripture. All right. They rejected his statutes and his covenant that he cut with their fathers and his testimonies, which he testified against them. And they followed vanity and became vain and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom Yahweh had charged them that they should not do like them. Verses 16 through 20. And they left all the commandments of Yahweh Elohim and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made an Asherah pole, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served Baal. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of Yahweh, to provoke him to anger. Therefore, Yahweh was very angry with Yasharel and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Yehuda only. And Yehuda did not guard the commandments of Yahuwah Elohim, but walked in the statutes of Yasharel, which they made. And Yahweh rejected all the seed of Yasharel and afflicted them and delivered them into the hand of spoilers, until he had cast them out of his sight. Verse 21 through 23, for he rent Yasharel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam, the son of Nevat, king, and Jeroboam drove Yasharel from following Yahweh and made them sin a great sin. Remember what he did? He set up the calves, one in Bethel, one in Dan. You don't have to go to Jerusalem anymore to worship. You can worship your own way right here, right? He did away with the commandments of the Torah. That was the sin. For the children of Yasharel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They departed not from them until Yahweh removed Yasharel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants, the prophets. So was Yasharel carried away out of their own land to Ashurah unto this day. All right, 2 Kings 17:24. And the king of Ashur brought men from Babel. Okay, it wasn't bad enough that he had the Assyrians. Now he's going to bring in the Babylonian soldiers, and from Kuthoth, and from Avah, and from Hamath, and from the Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Shamron instead of the children of Yasharel. And they possessed Shamron and dwelt in the cities thereof. So what's he doing? Dilute the culture, and make it into a new land, a land that would honor him. 2 Kings 17:25 and 26. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they feared not Yahweh, right? They just came into Yah's land and just started doing things any way that they wanted to do it. Well, it had become a wasteland. And we know from Revelation 18 that when a land becomes a wasteland, what happens? The wild beasts move in to occupy the land, right? So now these people come in and they're just doing their own thing, their own way. And so what happens? They have no fear of Yahweh. So therefore Yahweh sent lions among them, which slew some of them, right? So they started getting eaten by the lions. Wherefore they spoke to the king of Ashur, saying, the nations which you have removed and placed in the cities of Shamron know not the manner of the Elohai of the land. He's saying, we don't know how to honor the God that's over this land. They believed in gods over lands, right? They had that principle, but they didn't understand the Most High. Therefore he sent lions among them, and behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of the Elohai of the land. So they've got this complaint. They're like, king, you've got to do something. We're getting eaten by the lions. 2 Kings 17:27 and 28. Then the king of Ashur commanded, saying, carry thither one of the priests whom you brought from thence, and let them go and dwell there, and let him teach them the manner of the Elohai of the land. Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Shamron came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear Yahweh. So they found a Levite, and he had to start teaching them something about honoring Yah, so that they didn't all get eaten by lions. All right, 29 through 31. Howbeit every nation made Elohim of their own, and put them in the houses of the high places, which the Shamronim had made, every nation in their cities wherein they dwelt. And the men of Babel made Kukoth Binoth, and the men of Cuth made Nergal, and the men of Hamath made Ashima, and the Avayim made Nivkaz and Tartak, and the Severim burnt their children in the fire to Adremelech and Anamelech, and the Elohim of the Sephar Vayim. Now, I've never seen a breakdown of this before, so I wanted to really take a look, because, you know, time may march on, but ancient deities do not change. They may change names, they may change faces, they may appear now as DC comic characters. However, the spirit of that thing has not changed. So I wanted to look first. So we're looking at the land of Babel. Who was it? Kukoth Benoth. Now, if you look this up in Strong's, it's going to tell you that this is the word for a sukkah, a booth. It is not. This is done with a samach, all right, not a shen. This has nothing to do with a sukkah, all right? So this is samach kuf vav tav, right? So the Strong's tells us this is only used one time in scripture. Okay, and that's true of this Kukoth Benoth. The Brown Driver Briggs says the daughter's booth. That's not accurate. An Assyrian or a Babylonian deity worshipped in Samaria. The etymology says that this is what I did is I took these words back to the true foundation of what they really say, rather than relying just on the Strongs. I just wanted to give you the comparison. Okay. So this word Kukoth here with the samach and not a sheen is prognosis. Okay, it's a prognosis. Now that the sons are formed with, right? I'm like, that's very interesting. So then I broke it down to the 3-letter root, and it's the samach, the kuf, and the he, and it means a seer, to view or see. So what is this when you put it together? It's a watcher. So when we have this, we're looking at like B'nai Ha-Elohim, or sons that are the watchers, right? So this is what are sons of the watchers, right? So this is this lineage that this was coming down from, which is totally consistent with everything that you see in Babel, the land of confusion. Okay, makes a lot more sense when we take it back. All right, so the root sakak or sakak speaks to the creation of a hedge of sorts from interwoven strands of sorts. It commonly describes how prickly branches interweave to create a defensive hedge to hide behind and to look intently out from. Right? In a figurative sense, it may describe any sort of protective thing that consists of many separate branches and from which one looks out. The psalmist famously connected this verb to the formation of a human fetus in Psalm 139:13, but it also obviously links to human culture and science and technology at large. The evangelist openly referred to all this by means of the famous crown of thorns. And so this is what I was, when I was looking at Abraham publications.com about this deity, right? Because this is a deity that is being prescribed. Oh, excuse me. Sorry for my dog's barking there. She'll calm down in a second. All right. So I found that very, very interesting there. Okay. So I wanted to read you a little bit more of what Abraham Publications said. Here at Abraham Publications, we surmise that this name reflects overconfidence in a multidisciplinary science. Of course, science is massively important, and an academy that comprises multiple separate labs and think tanks, daughters, is highly beneficial to any culture. But things go awfully awry when the ultimate goal of mankind's search for wisdom is misunderstood. Nowadays, we can endow computers with artificial intelligence and set them up to play a game we never explained to them. All we need to tell the computer is to win the game or to score the most points, and the computer will learn the game by trial and error until it plays better than any human and reach a perfect score. The problem with AI, however, is that we don't quite know how to score points at life. If only we knew what a perfect society looks like, we could tell our computers to get us there, and they would. But as long as we don't know how to bring about the new Jerusalem, humanity's perfect score, our AI overlords would quickly result to a fascist regime that murders all dissidents. Anybody who tells an AI to weed out all obstacles to a perfect world and gives it the means to do it will be swiftly executed by that obedient machine. This is why theology, i.e., the study of everything, is more important than AI. I thought that was very interesting and timely. All right, we're going to look at the next deity, okay? So this next deity was from the land of Cuth. All right. It is a kuf, a vav, and a tav. And the word, according to Brown Driver Briggs, means crushing. So the word, the place, the land of Cuth was a crushing place. So the Brown Driver Briggs says Cuth was a place approximately 20 miles northeast of Babylon that King Sargon of Assyria imported the colonists of Israel into. Okay. Now, the deity set up there was Nergal. So we've got a Nun, a Resh, a Gimel, and a Lamed. Now, Nergal is primarily associated with war, death, and disease, and has been described as the god of inflicted death, according to Wikipedia. The Brown Driver Briggs says it's a hero, a chief deity of Assyria and Babylon. The only instance of this name is found in the 2 Kings 17 passage, but a close reference can be found here, Jeremiah 39, 1-3. And that is in the 9th year of, this is Hezekiah, it's Zidkiyahu, king of Yehuda, in the 10th month. Shalom, Regina, welcome. And all his, okay, in the 10th month came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, and all his army against Jerusalem, and they besieged it. And in the 11th year of Zedekiah, in the 4th month, the 9th day of the month, the city was broken up. And all the princes of the kings of Babel came in and sat in the middle gate, even Nergal, Shar, et Sur. See, there it is. There's that deity, right? Kamer, Nav, Sarkim, Rav Sakur, and Nagal Shar Itzur is mentioned again. Rav Mag with all the remnant of the princes of the king of Babel. So when I dug into the word to look at it here, this Nergal Shar Esther, the etymology Hebrew definition is the chief prince of hoarding. Well, that's very interesting. That this, think about this in today's culture. What is the power grabs all about? I want all the power. I want all the money. I mean, look at our leaders. That's what they're all in, that's their nature. It's a hoarding nature. It's in the society, the statement, he who he who dies with the most toys wins. Not so much, but that's what people think. And that's what the culture of the society is like right now, right? So the Brown Driver Briggs definition is Prince of Fire, the chief soothsayer, and a ruler in the army of Nebuchadnezzar. So, I mean, this is someone that they're hoping, to go and find out, a word of how they can become the one who dies with the most toys, right? The soothsaying. Okay. How can I defeat my enemies? Right. So I found this very interesting. I was looking on DC Fandom because they have this character, Nergal. I also found a musician that was just too disturbing, a satanic musician, and his stuff was too disturbing to even begin to put on the screen, right? But according to DC Comic, this demon physiology, right? There, these people in love with these demon things. It has special abilities, claws, fangs, immortality, regeneration. That he came back from a small blood stain, although the regeneration process took a few years. Well, why do you think that they're digging up all the tombs of the pharaohs and the tombs of what would have been like the Raphaim, it's to get DNA to try to bring them back, right? To get this regeneration process. And things are going to be manifesting in our world all over the place. This is very real, the science. And just because it's coming through in a DC comic explanation doesn't mean this isn't happening in our society. It very much is. And the things that people are lusting after right now are going to terrify them quite soon. Right? The magic powers, the astral projection, the dimension travel, healing, really? Mechanokisis, okay? It says Nergal used his powers to fuel a car long after it ran out of gasoline. Metamorphosis, necromancy. Nergal created a monster out of human flesh, right? What's this? What is society so enthralled with right now? The zombie apocalypse, right? This is the dead coming back and being these zombies, right? The dead that won't die. Okay. Possession, pyrokinesis. Okay. It had special abilities, intimidation, leadership, and occultism, right? I mean, these things, the reason that I'm reading these things out is because there's nothing new under the sun. What has been will be. This is what we're going to have to be standing strong against and realize that this is demonic activity just manifesting, right? But Yahweh is on his throne. He is not shaken. He is not surprised. And he determined that he would have a people whose heart he could trust to honor and love him no matter what was manifesting in front of them. So we're going to, we got to have a real mindset. We've got to understand what we're going to be dealing with, but we've got to have strong hearts that will not faint and will not fear. When you fear Yahweh, when you are honestly walking in that gift of the Ruach, of the fear of Yahweh that was given to us by our bridegroom at Pentecost, the Shavuot that's known as Pentecost, where he had told his disciples, wait, tarry here 10 days until that gift comes. And he gave it to us, right? And one of those Ruachs that he gave us was the fear of Yahweh, because when you truly have it, when it is in you, you will fear nothing else. All right, on to the next deity that they're dealing with, Hamath. Okay, out of the land of Hamath came Ashima. So Hamath is one of the most ancient surviving cities on this earth. It's located in Upper Syria on the Orontes River, from which it derives its water by means of immense undershot water wheels called norias. The entrance of Hamath was the northern limit of Yasharel. This is what was right on the border of the northern kingdom's territory. Right? Ashima was the goddess of fate and destiny. Okay. You see this, gosh, in the prophets. I'm trying to remember what they're called, but it's, I think they call it Gad, right? And which is the god of fortune, right? Very interesting. So in the Ugaritic text, Ashima is often portrayed as a goddess of fertility, associated with abundance, growth, and the cycles of nature. She is revered for her power to bring forth life and ensure bountiful harvest. This I found on oldworldgods.com. Comparisons have been made between Ashima and the Phoenician god Esmun, who corresponds to the Greek god of healing, Asclepius. The association of Ashima with the Egyptian worship of Pan and the appearance of goats in Babylonian reliefs further contribute to the intricate web of mythology surrounding her. So this is all caught up into it. You know that your fortune would be that you're healed by this snake on a pole, right? This Asclepius and this, the hope of becoming a bionic man or a bionic woman. I'm telling you now, don't fall for the lies of the mainstream medical system. What's going to be after this trouble, right? When the word of peace and safety setting up, the mainstream medical system is the promise of this transhumanist agenda is that you will transcend being not merely human. You'll never know death. Why are they so insistent on this? Because to have to face their own demise is to have to face Yahusha and Judgment Day. So they're thinking of everything that they can to transcend it. And they are trying to fight against the Most High, and they will not win. Don't fall victim to this. All right, here's the next one. Avim. The land is Avim. They had two deities that were prominent in the land. The names of these deities were Nivkaz and Tartak. All right, so let's look at Nivkaz first. You can see it. It's got a Nun, a Bet, a Het, and a Zion. So the Avites, the Avim, the Avims. I went to Avraham Publications to find this, are an ancient people who dwelt in the region of Gaza before the time of Moses. Now, isn't this is very interesting. When you consider what's taking place in our world right now and today, this is very, very interesting. All right, so they dwelt in the region of Gaza before the time of Moses. Deuteronomy 2:23. The time of Joshua's old age, these people were still not rooted out, is shown in Joshua 13:3. In Joshua 18:23, this is the name of a city in the tribe of Benjamin. Zondervan's Bible Dictionary is where I got that information. If Nibhaz is the same of Nibaz or Nabaz, then it may mean the Lord of Darkness in Syriac. Since this creature may have had the shape of a dog, the Hebrews may have associated its name with the verb nabah, meaning to bark. And in some manuscripts, this deity is referred to as Nibhan, which makes the association of the following verb even stronger, nebah, the barker. Right? So I'm looking at this, and one of the things with the chimeric aspect is bringing back the wolfman, right? And I think that we can certainly expect that to manifest before our very eyes. Be not afraid, be not shaken, okay? We're being warned ahead of time at what's coming upon the nations. The second deity, Tartak. All right, we can see it here in the modern and the pictograph. We've got a Tav, a Resh, a Tav, and a Kuf. It's unclear what Tartak might mean, but Genesius derived it from a Pahlavi Royal Iranian phrase, Tarthak, meaning profound darkness, or the hero of darkness. So, and the Brown Driver Briggs states that this deity was known as the Prince of Darkness. So it just tells us we're dealing with a principality in high places, a prince of darkness, which is what was in the beginning, right? Darkness was on the face of the deep. Now, I love this because we've got a promise in Isaiah 60. He says, arise and shine, for your light has come, for the glory of Yahweh has risen upon you, right? And even though darkness is covering the nations and great darkness covering the people, my light shall be in you and shall be seen, right? What his people we're reflecting his character and who he is. What's so amazing to me is when you look at Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, darkness is on the face of the deep. And what's the first thing that Yahweh calls forth to deal with it but light? Who is that light? Yahusha. It's not the sun. It's a light that far outshines the sun, because the sun is not created until day 4. And it's not a created being, because Yahusha was just called forth to deal with it as the light, to deal with darkness, and deal with it he has. It is exciting. I'm glad to be part of his kingdom. All right, so now let's look at the next one, the Sepharvim. All right, this is the land of the Sepharvim. The deity in that land was Adramelech and Anamelech. Okay, so let's look at those. The name which the author of 2 Kings 17:31 gives to Adar, the god of the Sepharites, brought to Samaria when the king of Assyria settled them there, and in worship of who children were burned in the fire. We're still dealing with it today. This is what abortion is. Okay. Now looking at the other one, Anamelech. The name Anamelech occurs once in the Bible. It's the name of one of the two gods of the Sepharvites to whom they sacrificed their children by burning. These Sepharvites were relocated in Israel by decree of the king of Assyria, and the Lord had sent lions among them to sort them out. Hence, they request of the king a priest attuned with the God of Israel, so that they may learn how to keep the lions out. The priest comes and settles in Bethel, but apparently he wasn't much of an evangelist, because even though the new locals begin to fear Yahweh, they keep worshiping their idols. The name Anamelech may simply mean King Anu, or Anu is king. This is from the NOBSC Study Bible name list. It may even carry the meaning of king of answers, or king of business, or king of oppression, or king of poverty. All right. And again, I was looking at www.abaram-publications.com. I found that to be a really good site when we're looking these things up. Isaiah 11:2. Yes, that is where we get all the ruachs, right, T? Okay. So now let's continuing on in 2 Kings 17:32 and 33. So they feared Yahweh and made unto themselves of the lowest of them priests of the high places, which sacrificed for them in the houses of the high places. They feared Yahweh and served their own Elohim after the manner of the nations whom they carried away from thence. Right? Did they, to fear Yahweh, it seems like a contradictory statement that they feared Yahweh. They did, to an extent, maybe to the extent of their knowledge, right? But they were serving their own Elohim. That's what we had just seen. Verse 34 through 36. Unto this day, they do after the former manners. They fear not Yahweh, neither do they after their statutes, or after their ordinances, or after the Torah and commandment, which Yahweh commanded the children of Yaakov, whom he named Yasharel, with whom Yahweh had cut a covenant, right? A brit, a cut. All right. And charge them, saying, ye shall not fear other Elohim, nor bow yourselves to them, nor serve them, nor sacrifice to them. But Yahweh, who brought you up out of the land of Mitzrayim with great power and a stretched out arm, him shall you fear, and him shall you worship, and to him shall you do sacrifice. All right. And I think this probably finishes us up. 2 Kings 17:37 through 41. And the statutes and the ordinances and the Torah and the commandment which he wrote for you, ye shall guard, right? It's to shamar. That's that word, shamar, right? It's like you're building a fence around it. You shall guard to do forevermore. Forevermore. I love this, that it is forever, right? It is. Let me just play you something here just so we get it.
Forever, forever, forever.
Forever. It has not been done away with. All righty. And the covenant that I've cut with you, you shall not forget, neither shall you fear other Elohim, but Yahweh Elohim ye shall fear, and he shall deliver you out of the hand of your enemies. Howbeit they did not hearken, but they did after their former manner. So these nations feared Yahweh and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children, as did their fathers. And so they do unto this day. All right. So we are that last days generation, and we have an exciting time before us. We have some rough days ahead, but keep your eyes on Yahusha. I'm going to be doing a recording of for Ezra's, because there's promises in there that we need to know, and it's going to strengthen you. And so I'm going to try to get that. I'm going to try to get that recorded and put up as soon as I can. So for now, shalom, blessings. Thank you so much for coming and joining me today, or whether you're able to watch in the future, whichever it is. I pray that this is a blessing to you. I pray that it strengthens you. Hazak amatz, right? Be strong and courageous. That's what Joshua told us, and that's what we still need to do today. Alrighty, shalom.
Their journey began in Yasharel, but they were scattered across the face of the earth, each one with its own beats, and each one with its own rhythm. As the dry bones are being revived, the beat begins again at the heart of the tribe.